veterans and first responders, the struggles that they face, and how psychedelics might be an answer or at least a tool in the toolbox. Today, my guest is Alan Lynn, a Marine and former police officer, now retired. And he himself has a story to share. In addition, he has some ideas around how these earth medicines, plant medicines, fungi can help people who really need it most and are really deserving of coming back home to themselves and finding peace within their body, minds, and souls. So thank you all for being here today on another episode of Ideas to Human Better. My name is Eva Payne. I am your host. And without further ado, let me bring in my guest today, Sir Alan. Hello, sir.
Well, hello, Eva, and good morning. So excited to get a chance to talk to you in this setting versus some of the other settings we've had. This is
Yeah,
incredible.
yeah. I'm excited
Before I
about
forget, I do have to say something. You just said something that just dawned on me, calling it not plant medicine, but earth medicine, because it is from the earth, and the earth is so vital to who we are and how we got here. So I love that.
Thanks. Yeah. Well, when I think about it, I mean, because there's so many different plants, and then when you think about psychedelics, sometimes they're mushrooms, and those aren't really plants; they're more
Right?
categorized as fungi. And then there's also frogs,
Yeah.
medicines from animals, or other. Even I'm sure there's plenty of things we haven't even discovered yet, and so I just call it earth medicine to me. That's what it seems like. It's not something that we've necessarily construed. Although I will say that there's a lot of benefits around stuff like MDMA, which is, construed by us,
Right.
humans, a chemical compound. But before we get into all of that,
Yep.
I would love to know more about you, your background, why you're passionate about first responders and veterans, and anything that you want to share around that, sir. Please take it
Yeah.
away.
We can do that. So, as you said earlier, I'm a Marine, also career law enforcement as a police officer.
Mhm.
Was in the Marine Corps for 4 years. Was in Desert Storm in 1990 and 91. So that kind of began my life of some of the stuff that we deal with today.
Mhm.
And from there, I got out of the Marine Corps, decided to go into law enforcement, became a police officer, did almost 25 years in there. And of course, in that period of time, I saw lots of stuff, experienced lots of things, that a lot of suffering in this world. And being, I know this is pretty common with veterans and first responders as a whole. We see a lot of that suffering, and we take a lot of it on ourselves. And during that time, we kind of lose who we are. We lose ourselves. We lose our spirituality, and a lot of other things kind of go with that. And that's kind of the path I took. I was in an environment where it wasn't okay to be vulnerable. You didn't show your emotions. What I like to say, you suffered in silence. You didn't want to show any signs of weakness to the other people you worked with because you had to trust them. Excuse me, and they had to trust you in day-to-day activities and some stuff that's pretty hard.
Wait, will
But
you pause really quick? Because I just
yeah,
have a question about that. Because I understand that way of thinking, but to me, I would sooner trust someone who was open and vulnerable and was like, that was hard, or that sucked, or that situation, and versus like stuffing it down. So can you just, for those of us out there who don't
absolutely.
maybe understand that, like, what is it around that, like, be tough mindset, and why does that seem more trustworthy than vulnerability and openness and honesty? Because there's no way you're all not thinking like, well, that was a hot mess we just walked into.
Right. And so to be honest with you, it's societal. It's a societal thing. And I agree with you. And I've learned over the years, and especially over the last year, that being vulnerable is more important because you're seeing the true heart of that person, and that true courage of that person comes out. But as you're going through this, and society teaches you in boot camp, in training, all this, you're taught that you can't show your emotions in front of people because you have to be that rock, that steady source. It's kind of like, I don't know, when I was growing up, parents didn't show emotions to, crying. Like my dad, he didn't cry in front of us. That's just something he did because that's what society taught us. So that is just perpetuated throughout the veteran community and the first responder community. Is that changing now? Absolutely. Does it need to
Good.
change? It needs to change faster. We can talk about that a little bit later, but yeah, that's just the mindset that's there.
Okay.
You know, you have, I mean, a lot of females. are in this position and they do an amazing job. And I think there needs to be more of them, but it is a male dominated field, and you get that alpha male, which I hate to use, but the alpha male mentality. So you have to be tougher than the next person. So I can't show you that I have feelings. I can't cry in front of you. And just stuff like that. You can't show those raw emotions.
Yeah, it just seems like that's very, very upside down to me, because then you're just stuffing stuff down, and then, like, we wonder where all this PTSD. Well, no, who wonders? I mean, everyone knows, right? I mean,
Right.
you're out there really facing really challenging things. You're seeing death, you're seeing pain and suffering on the daily, and to just shove it down as if that's just normal and that you don't have a compassionate response to that, that there's not an outlet for men and women in the services, whatever those services might be, to be able to express that. That's hard to sit with, to see other human beings, regardless of what your background is. It just feels like no wonder there's so much trauma coming
Yeah.
out of those professions, because you've had to fake it. Like, it's just not real, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Almost acts like it's not real. I mean, it's not normal to see a burnt body. It's not normal to see bodies blown up. It's not normal to see a 8-month-old child being hauled from the emergency room to a life flight helicopter with a neck brace and everything else on there, life support stuff,
Yeah.
because their mom's boyfriend shook them because they were crying too hard. That's not stuff you should see. People aren't supposed to see that. And then, but then to close it off and not talk about it, yeah, all it does is it grows in you. And that's kind of where, I mean, what happened to me over the years. I became very critical of who I was. Everything I did, I blamed on kind of karma, that, oh, I deserve this because of what I did in the past or something that occurred beforehand. And I just believed that. So when horrible things happen, or my first marriage ended, that was my fault. I was angry, a lot of angry and depression issues that came on. But as my career went on, it kind of got worse. And I was a big preacher. I promoted up to the rank of captain. So I was actually in charge of 60 officers on the patrol team. And I was a preacher of wellness, go get help. But I didn't practice it myself because I had that mentality. They can't see me that way. They have to see me as this rock. And then it kind of all came to a head in 2021. I started having some illness issues. Well, I had prior to that, I had significant depression and anxiety issues prior to that. I was in a marriage that was not good. We just perpetuated the negative cycles between the two of us.
Mhm.
She was also in law enforcement, so she had some of the same issues.
Got it.
We didn't seek help. We didn't think, we didn't want to admit we needed help. So in 2021, after some health issues, we didn't know what it was. I made a critical error as a police officer. I lied, and I'll be honest, I lied. Unintentionally lied at first, intentionally lied once I found out I didn't do something I was supposed to. I was put on that what they call administrative leave. The gun, my badge, my identity was taken away for a short period of time, and I was going to get fired. That was probably the darkest point of my time. That's where I actually reached the point that I was going to kill myself. I actually, in the end of February of 2021, I sat down on my back patio at my house, and I had the gun in my mouth, and I was ready to pull the trigger. But fortunately, an image of my daughter who came across the table, and all she said was why, and that realized, I was to a point where I had to get help. Prior to that, I didn't want help from other people. I didn't want people to see the shame and the guilt that I had. But that caused me to reach out and start this journey that I've been on, where I met you. Was luckily I was at an age where I could retire and not get fired. So that was some saving grace. 5 days after I retired, I ended up going into the urgent care for a sore throat. Thought it was COVID, couldn't breathe very well. Ended up being leukemia. And that day, they told my friend who was a chaplain, they didn't believe I was going to live past that day. Took me up to a hospital up in Portland, Oregon, Oregon Health and Science University, and I spent the next 8 months in and out of there, chemo treatments, bone marrow treatment, and finally, in October, I came back home. During that time, my marriage of 12 years had finally collapsed. It was too much for her to handle, and I understand that. So she left me during that time.
This
So I
was a
come
second marriage, right?
do what my second marriage, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So that's got
Um,
to be added, just added, like, oh, of course, failed this one too,
Oh,
one more
absolutely.
thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's how I viewed it too. I viewed it, well, this is it. But the nice thing is because of it, I hate to say, well, actually, no. I have a lot of gratitude for the fact that I was going to kill myself on that day. I have a lot of gratitude for the fact that I ended up with leukemia because of those factors. Um, I was able to reach out to individuals who have now become my tribe and my support system,
Yeah.
and they've taught me a different way to look at life and how to be vulnerable and how to express my emotions. But so that's kind of the path I was on. So from 2021 to 2023, I was in the healing process. I was doing a lot of looking into meditation. I was doing yoga. It was, meeting with a therapist, benefit health and all that stuff, but I was half-assing it. I was still missing something. I was like, oh, look what I'm doing, but I really wasn't following through on what I needed to do.
Yeah.
Um, and then finally in December of 2023, my therapist who I was dealing with said, Alan, we're stuck. You're stuck. And I don't know how else to help you. And like I said yesterday when I talked to you, it's pretty discouraging when you hear your therapist say that. But he suggested psychedelic treatment or psilocybin. So I started looking around. The universe brought me to you, and had my first retreat in January 2022 or 2024, excuse me, this
Yeah.
year. And I've had the privilege of coming and helping you multiple times. And what I will say, we know where I was before, but since that time, since January, and didn't have a dramatic thing happen, but I learned self-love. I immediately was filled with self-love, love for other humans, which I've always had. But my issue was is I wanted to help people, but
Hmm.
I wasn't able to hold that space without taking in their negative energy and then turning it into something for me to eat me, make it worse for what I was dealing with. And I refused to deal with my own issues. So it just became more and more and more compounded. But now I found that self love and that direction of helping other people. And the other thing is, I found spirituality again, and earth medicines help you with that. Because at some point in your life, when you're feeling miserable, you're seeing all the stuff, this horrible stuff going on, you lose faith that there is no God, there is no spirituality, there's just us and evil. And I've learned that's not the case. I know there's something bigger out there, and whatever your beliefs are, I was raised Christian. I still have those views, but there is a bigger being out there,
Yeah.
and we have to have faith and trust that that being has is going to care for us. And I do have that now. My anxiety issues are less, or actually, I don't even have much anxiety. Depression is great, is gone. The biggest thing I learned, and one of the other huge benefits is this, is especially with your program and how you have it set up, um, is the ability to let go. I've learned how to let go of the stuff in the past because really all that matters to me is what's going on in the present moment. Yesterday's gone. I can't change it. Tomorrow, yeah, I can give some direction, but I'm not going to stress about it because it's going to be, when it gets here, it's going to do what it's going to do. I can't completely control it. And if I want to control it, I'm going to get back to where I was. So learning how to give up that control, learning how to let go, um, has been phenomenal for that. And so in talking about stuff like that, that's where the biggest benefits for, I think, veterans, first responders in plant medicine. Um, but I'll see if you have any questions first, and then I'll let you guide us to the next
Yeah.
phase.
No, you're awesome. Thank you for sharing all of that and just for being so open and vulnerable about your story. I mean, it's so many people out there going to be able to relate to that. I mean, unfortunately, right? Like
Yeah.
I don't, hopefully we can evolve to the place to where we no longer are hurting each other in the ways that we are. And war is something of the past. And, people's triggers are a lot less. Like we really see each other as valuable and life as precious. And until then, we're all just doing our best given the societal norms, which are kind of messed up. So I want to go back first to where you said you were half assing it and you were not putting in 100% into, therapy or whatever it was. How do you know? I mean, were you like just going through the motions? Like someone out there, how do they know if they're, like, actually giving it their all? Because I think there are people who are giving it their all, but, like,
Mhm.
also not seeing progress or success. What was it for you that made you feel like saying that and describing it in that way?
So, and if you asked me this question a year and a half ago, I would say, "Oh, I'm doing all this work. Why am I not making?" Because I wasn't progressing. I was in a cycle. I'd be really good, and then I'd cycle back down, and then I'd have suicidal ideations again, and I'd be depressed again, and it was just a cycle over and over and over. But now I look back at it, what I have in this. I consider 2024 my transformational year.
Yeah.
I'm a different person, absolutely, and even my friends and my family tell me that. But I look back now at that period, and what I realize is, yeah, I would, you know, my therapist would give me a book to read, or my nutritionist, who's also a yoga teacher and kind of a life coach, would give me homework to do, and I would do it, but I wouldn't really follow through on anything. And like and this is kind of, on the yoga classes, they're virtual classes, so she wanted me to do yoga because it's good, and it actually does have lots of benefits. I would I would turn on the video, get to the link, turn off my camera so she couldn't see me, and I wouldn't do the class just because I didn't want to do it. But she thought I did, and other people thought I did. So here I'm not doing the steps I'm supposed to do, but I'm telling people I am, or I'm putting on that I am. So yeah, I was just half-assing, and I was getting nothing out of it.
Okay, so let's if we can unpack that a little bit more. So you're having these suicidal ideations, looping back into that. You want to be better because who really wants to sit with that? So where does this lack of motivation or like is it that these things weren't working and so you were just looping back over through them? You can go ahead and sip your thing too, by all means. Please, please be comfortable.
Oh, yeah.
Um, like, so I'm just trying to understand because if someone's out there and they're sitting in the traditional models, they're doing the therapy or trying
Mhm.
to, they're saying, "Hey, let's take care of the body, the mind, the spirit." Like they're doing some exercise and like what is it? What is happening that is it the not seeing the success fast enough? Is it sitting in the victimhood? Like what's going on with people that they're
Right.
not like that isn't working for them? And then finally, oh my gosh, hey, psychedelics come into your life and you start to see this huge leap forward. I'm just wanting people to be able to really recognize where they are and just honor that kind of looping process and in understanding where you were with it.
Yeah, yeah, I get that. So for me, yeah, there's a lot of factors that went into it. One is, yeah, I went through I would follow through, and then, but it become, oh, it's difficult, it's hard, or I don't like the feelings, because I wasn't used to those feelings, or those
Okay.
are feelings I have shoved away for so long that when they
Got
start
it.
coming, I don't want to face these anymore. So I would loop back. The other part is it's the self love piece, that I definitely was lacking. I didn't feel like I deserved to be healthy. I didn't feel like I deserved to be happy. I didn't feel like so all of a sudden I might start making a breakthrough and start feeling better. I was like, well, that's not right. I can't be that. I haven't earned this, or I don't deserve this. So then that would cause me back in that
Right.
loop. And I've talked to other people that do that, it's very similar. Is that they don't feel like they deserve happiness when in reality they do.
Yeah.
So
Where does that
that,
come from? Where does like, is it choices that you've made? Is it stuff from childhood? Like, where is this? How come people don't feel worthy of being healthy? I mean, look, you're not asking for a lot. You're just asking to like not feel like crap every day and not
right.
want to take your life, wanting to show up for your family, at least some baseline. I mean, why aren't all humans worthy of that? Regardless of the
Mm.
choices that you've made or whatever belief systems that you have, like where does that stem from? Like
Yeah.
where does that voice in your head or in your heart or wherever it's coming from? Where is that rooted in? Or where was that rooted in, I should say?
Each person's a little different, I think, but for me, it was definitely from childhood, and then and I love my mom, I love my dad, and they are major parts of my life.
Yeah.
But I still very distinctly remember coming from school one day, and I think I was in middle school, but I came home and I got like a B on a paper on a class I was having a hard time with, and
Yeah.
I was all excited. Showed mom. show the paper, look, I finally got a B and stuff. And I remember distinctly her words, well, could you got an A? Um,
Mm,
Knowing now that all she was trying to do is motivate me to do better. But
got it.
for a child to hear that, all I could think of was, oh my God, I failed my mom again. I will never be good enough. So I became a self critic and a perfectionist, and I could never ever um, do well enough in my own eyes. So that began that cycle, and it kind of continued the rest of my life. The reason why I joined the Marine Corps is because I considered myself weak and not very strong. So I picked was going to be the hardest branch to do that. I
Yep.
chose a career in law enforcement because I didn't think I was manly enough. So I was going to show everyone that I was. So it's just something that started at childhood and I perpetuated the rest of my life. And a
Got it.
lot of people are that way.
Got it. I got it. Sure. And then being in a profession where I'm sure you probably hear that a lot, like, do better, you can be
Yeah.
better, let's go faster, stronger. It's just that like machismo, masculine energy at its extreme, because there's a beautiful balance with that masculine energy, but that just maybe perpetuates that same pattern, that same
No,
belief.
it does. It
Yeah,
does.
which
Absolutely.
then makes it challenging to be vulnerable because that's the feminine side, that's the loving, the openness, and you're not allowed to have any of that. So stepping into that, even in therapy or whatever, I could see where that would be a challenge.
Right.
Yeah.
No, and it was. And so I just, like I said, it was a cycle
Yep.
for me.
And then you're not open in your relationships and you're not telling people how you feel. So you're just sitting and struggling in silence. Okay. I'm sorry, first of all.
No, you're,
You
oh,
know?
I'm
Yeah.
sorry
'Cause
about,
Well, I mean, it's the fact that like that's even a thing, that this is
no.
just still a norm, and that so many people out there are sitting in that day in and day out. And thank goodness we have a solution or
Yeah.
a possible solution. So let's go to that. Your therapist is like, okay, I don't know what else to do for you. We've sat in therapy. I'm trying to get you here. And I'm sure therapists out there are just like week after week saying the same thing, and they know exactly where they want to get their patient to. But your patterns are so ingrained now, the way of thinking, that it's hard to rewire the brain.
Hmm.
Hence why psychedelics can be such a great tool. So let's talk about why specifically, or even you could talk about your experience in general, anything you want to say about it. But why do you think that these psychedelics, these tools, and the other healing modalities that we stack with these psychedelics could be beneficial for individuals who really have these negative belief patterns?
Yeah. So the psychedelics. So I only have an experience with psilocybin, and which is limited. I know, and it's kind of like that
That's okay.
baseline.
Yeah,
But for
beautiful.
what I've seen and what I've experienced and what I've witnessed working with you and other folks, um, that the medicine, and we learned this last week when I did my last journey, the medicine will take you where you need to go. You may have to go direct it, you may ask it, but it's going to find where that hurt and that pain is. And for me, it has built it built love inside my heart and opened my heart up so I could feel love again. Mainly self love. I actually left the retreat, that first retreat, and I actually loved who I was. I was proud of who I was, and that's not
Yeah,
something I could have said a week prior to that.
yeah,
And that has continued on, but it's built confidence in myself, confidence and self love in myself, that I know that I can go out and help other people, which is the biggest, which is something I want to do. But for veterans and first responders, you know, it helps you find that calmness that you're not able to find. It helps you open up. It helps you kind of kill the ego, because we do have an ego issue with veterans first responders. It's just a fact of
yeah,
life.
yeah,
But it helps kill that ego and put and give you humility and humanness again. And then, because when you're out there in a society where all you see is horror, you that's kind of what you adopt. This opens
yeah,
up, realize Earth is a beautiful place. The world is a beautiful place. Humans are amazing, no matter what we think. I trust people again. I had lost trust in people.
mhm,
Community is a huge, and And if we've talked about many a times before, community is so essential, and this has given me community. But I've also been able to reach out to other groups. I'm part of other communities out there that aren't psychedelics, but I have a book club I'm part of. I have other things. I have this connection to people that I didn't have before,
Yeah.
and that's what being involved with this medicine has realized me and created for me. And I know that other veterans or first responders, because what we do is we get in that community of negative people, and
Yeah.
so we just keep feeding each other. But now, if you can expand out, find that love. You also find the peace. You find the calmness. I don't get angry anymore. It's actually I've had my kids tell me that they've noticed a significant change, not only from this year, but because after the leukemia bout. But I've changed my life. I don't get angry. I don't react anymore. I actually think about things, and if I do react, it's in love. It's in compassion towards people. And it's a side they didn't know. And I've got a better bond with my family and my friends. And so, veterans or first responders, or anybody who's dealing with significant trauma, and you
Yeah.
feel stuck, the psilocybin for me was just that spark that got me over the hump, got me thinking outside of myself and able to grow. And then I've been able to use other modalities. I work out all the time now. I used to work out only to punish myself or to create chaos so I didn't have to deal with what I was facing. Now I work out because I feel great and I know it's something I need to do for longevity. Um, I eat better, my diet's better. Same reasons. I know that for longevity and for happiness, to be here for the people I want to be here for, I have to do all this. And I love it. I enjoy it. I get up every day excited for what the day is going to bring me. And that's
Mhm.
not that's not normal. And I only contribute it to you and the medicine and what it's done for me and opened up the pathways to understand all of that.
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah. The cynicism, right, that can happen when you just see such hard things day in and day out. I remember I one of the careers I had looked at in college was to be a social worker, and for a semester I volunteered at the Health and Human Services in Lincoln, Nebraska, and oh my gosh, just the amount of challenges that were faced and the system that didn't really have adequate answers and support for people. I mean, I was stealing toilet paper from my sorority and bringing it to moms because whatever system was in place would buy food but not toilet paper. It was like,
Right.
what the heck, I mean, just like simple things like that. And at the end of the semester, we sat down, and the social worker I was working with, I mean, she was just so jaded, really,
Yeah.
just so jaded. And she said to me, don't come here. Don't come in this profession. Like, you're too much of an optimist. You're too kind and nice. Like, it'll suck the life out of you.
Out
And
of
I
you.
remember meeting a police officer too, and young. I mean, I want to say like late 20s, and he talked about the profession and just how it has just made him so jaded. Just his belief in humanity was just sort of dripped out of him, because he's just dealing with people who are in pain and suffering the whole time. And then to not have an outlet, to not be able to talk about your emotions. I mean, it's just so messed up, the,
Yes.
the whole way that it's all set up and just allowed to perpetuate over and over again. So I'm so grateful that you chose an alternative route, chose something that one day I believe will be mainstream and that will
Hmm.
be a tool for all of us, and we will come out of these dark ages. I'm curious for you. Let's talk about your relationships. I know you're in a relationship now with a beautiful woman, and you've got that going, your relationship with your kids you touched on. How has your approach to relate and yourself, let's talk about that
Yeah.
too, your relationship to self, how has that evolved over the last 6 months?
It's relation with my children's kind of it's hasn't evolved dramatically over the last 6 months because actually the last two and a half years it's been amazing and the growth we've had. But my relationship, I will say relationship, a romantic relationship with like my partner I have now, um, is totally different than I've ever had before. I'm able to communicate with her. I communicate things that I wouldn't have talked about before. And if something's bothering me, I don't sit on it. I don't stew about it. I don't think, oh, I can't say this because it's going to create chaos or upset her. And I don't want to do that. I want her to be happy. I don't care what I feel like. I don't do that anymore. And I'm in a relationship now. Like I said, I've never had emotions like this for someone else. I've never felt this connected to somebody before. And it's because of that ability to talk, ability to communicate, that compassion and understanding we have with each other, and we don't sit on the things. We live 6.5 hours apart, so I come down to her house once a month for a week. But other than that, we're living by phone or text. And so it's very important to understand being patient,
Yeah.
and communicating. And we do it great. And I and it's all because of what I've learned about self love for myself. Because now I give myself compassion. I and patience with myself. If I don't do something right the first time, I'm okay with it now. If I'm late for an appointment, I'm okay with it now. Beforehand, I would just be critical and say, Alan, you're an idiot, you're a moron, you can't do shit right. Ah, right now, my life is awesome, and I've had an awesome life. I just didn't see it,
Mm,
and that's kind of that relationship that has really grown over the last 6 months.
yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that and just being open towards that. Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing is people don't even know what it can look like.
Oh,
It's like,
right.
is it even possible to be able to communicate? Is it even possible to be able to speak my truth? Is that person still going to love me? Are they still going to show up for me if I have these feelings? I have a question for you. Do you still see a therapist? Are you still in connection with that individual or
I
an individual? Yeah.
Yeah, that's someone I will never break that connection. We meet, we're up to every 4 months now,
Okay.
versus
Yeah.
every week, which is what it
Yeah.
was at one point. But yeah, I consider him a friend, so I will never stop
Yeah.
that. If we stop seeing each other in the office, I'm gonna find a way to have coffee or something with him just
Good.
for
And so I'm curious now that relationship, to be with someone that week out, week in, you're just saying the same stuff and not seeing that progress forward. What has your therapist said about you and
so.
your growth
Mm,
since, well, I mean, even before the plant medicine, like just seeing that you really putting the effort in and then being able to work with this and over this year.
Yeah, and my last appointment I had with him, I think 3 weeks ago, um, we talked about that, and basically, well, not basically, his comment to me was, he goes, "Alan, you're thriving. I'm so proud of you." He goes,
Mm.
"There's a point in this time that he goes, you weren't getting it, and there are points I wanted to take you and throttle you, but I knew he goes, I can't do that, but that's what I wanted to do is smack you, but
Ah.
he goes, since in the last year or last 6 months, you have completely changed. You have found yourself. You found who you are. You found your love for yourself, and it's expanded to everyone else around you. He goes, when you walk in this room now, he goes, I can feel the energy coming from you. I actually see your energy coming off of you. And he goes, it's only positive now versus that was not the case not that long ago.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? I mean,
Hmm.
I know how you are amongst humans because 'cause you've served at our
Right.
retreats, you volunteered and you just are this incredibly compassionate human. I only know you that way, because
Right.
I didn't know you before, and so I can't even imagine, like, the Alan before, like, it just doesn't even compute in my mind, but think about what this medicine can do for therapy in general, for therapists who have all these skills, all this wisdom and knowledge around how to help someone, but because you're stuck in a loop and you just can't get out of that groove, I don't get how they're able to really make progress, like maybe the tiniest bit. And this medicine, rewiring the brain, clean slating those patterns so you can create new patterns. I mean, it must just be heaven sent for them.
Yeah. And for any therapists that are out there listening to this, I highly recommend that you look into this for your patients, your clients, whatever you want to call them,
Yeah.
your family. Simple fact, my therapist wasn't something he's ever been involved with. He's did a little research on it, but he did enough research on it. He knew enough about me. So I will say he's a combat vet. So he kind of had some understandings of the stuff I went through.
Yeah.
So I think that was the connection. Well, actually, it was the connection from the beginning for me and him. But he looked into it and realized there's other things out there. I'm not helping. I'm not reaching him where he needs to go. So he was willing to let go and try something. He was courageous to tell me about that and have me do this, and it
Yeah.
just worked out. I'm so thankful for that.
Yeah, way to check his own ego too,
Oh
and
yeah,
just like really be honest, like, "Hey, I don't know what else I can do." I mean, I felt that way when I was just coaching women. I'm not even a therapist, but just coaching people, and I thought, "How do therapists do this?" Week after week, we're talking about the same thing, like, "Girl, you gotta quit your job, or you gotta get out of
yeah,
that relationship, or you." It's
yeah,
like it's so clear as day to everyone, even the person, but it's having the courage to take that step, having the courage for you to be open and vulnerable, to forgive all the stuff in the past, to like really have hope in what's possible for you in your future. I mean, I know right now you get up in the morning and you're running every day, you're training for what, a half marathon or marathon with one of your
half
kiddos.
marathon. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, it's like that's taking care of your body. You're taking care of your mind through these journeys and just through the mindfulness practices that you're bringing in, having a connection to something outside of you, this spiritual connection, taking care of that, understanding that you are this beautiful soul inside, and not beating up that piece of you anymore, thinking you're not good enough, and just having grace. I mean, really
Yes.
understanding that word grace probably in a whole new way than you ever have before.
Yeah. I didn't know what grace was. I didn't know what gratitude was. I have side note, I have a practice now, and you've been a recipient of this. Every Wednesday, I will send out 3 texts or emails to people who are important to me and just tell them thank you for what you did and helped me in my life, and I'm so glad that our paths crossed. That's all I say, and then I let it go from there.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's such a beautiful, simple thing to do. I remember in one of my darkest hours, that not that particular advice, although
Right.
I really love that, but it was just have a gratitude practice, whatever that is for
Yep.
you. For me, it was write down 3 things you're grateful for in the morning and at night. And but honestly grateful for. So sometimes I'd really have to think, like, I guess I'm
That's
grateful that I had coffee today. I'm grateful that I got out of bed and showered. I'm grateful that like my kids
right.
said I love you. I mean, just sometimes it was the simplest thing. It wasn't like some monumental thing, but just trying to really connect into that gratitude. So I love that practice of acknowledging people outside of you that have really come into your life, and recognizing them. I mean, that just goes back to just how kind you are, and I love that. So what now, sir? What
So
now?
what?
Where are your plans? Where do you want to go with all of this? Or do you have any more clarity around that? What do you
So I
see
do
for
have
your
yeah.
future?
So for my future, what I see happening, I'm going to make happen, is I started working on a book after I got done with cancer, and that was kind of a healing process for me. But it sat on the shelf for the last year and a half, almost 2 years, and that has been reignited. And I know for me, because I don't want other people to suffer like I did.
Yeah.
I learned how to heal myself in the month amidst the chaos. The time to learn how to heal yourself is before the shit hits the fan. Let's say it that way.
Mhm.
And I want other people to have those skill set, and it's out there for them. They just have to reach out for it. So I want to finish this book that I'm writing about what I went through, and then the transformation I've made this last year. But once that's done and that's solid, using that to launch wellness retreats or just going and speaking to people, especially first responders and veterans, to let them know that life is good and you're okay, and whatever you're facing now, you can overcome this and you can achieve happiness in life. It's there. Whether it be, I do believe earth-based medicines are a key to that, but I also understand with the veteran community, not so much, but definitely the first responder community, that's a stigma that we have to be weary about because of the regulations out there, and
Yeah.
they can't partake in that. But there are things, other modalities that can help them through that, and I want to be able to give that to others. I want to see, before I've always liked to help people, but before I had the external part to do that, I had the skill set, the knowledge, the lessons. I'm internally ready for that now, though, because I have the self love to give out. I can hold space for someone now, and I'm not going to take in their negative energy, but I'm going to help them and heal, and I can do that, which is not something. feasible a couple years ago. So yeah, my goal is to finish the book this year, get that wrapped up, get it out there, and then start creating a wellness type seminars or
Yeah.
retreats, and then just go around talking to different people, whoever's open to listen, and just go from there and spread the love, basically.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And hopefully, with the more people that utilize these medicines, the more people that speak their truth, we can begin to create more of a movement. We can
Right.
reduce that stigma and start to decriminalize more, legalize whatever the path is that we need to consider. There are so many negative coping skills that
Hmm.
are accessible and legal,
Oh, absolutely.
and but the things that are actually beneficial are vilified and put behind, they're gate kept essentially. Like, no,
Yeah.
this thing here, 1 or 2 sessions, 4 to 6 hours was something that you cannot become addicted to. You can't take too much, is really loving, supporting, nurturing process. Like that has this negative connotation, schedule one, blah, blah, blah.
Hmm.
And yet, here's all the alcohol that you could possibly want. I mean, how many people do you know and do I know who have been hurt from alcohol, whether it was and it's something small, like they just said something they wish they never said, all the way up to addiction or liver failure or whatever, I mean, so many bad things. And yet
Yeah.
it's glorified, and it's the big sponsors of big sporting events.
Hmm.
And oh my gosh, it's like, what
Yeah.
what world are we living in here? I'm very confused
Yeah.
on all of this.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't, I don't know if I wouldn't consider myself an alcoholic, but I used alcohol as a crutch for most of my career. I
Yeah,
still do have a glass now and here, but it's for
yeah,
pleasure now. I only do it because I actually like the taste of whiskey. I'm
yeah,
weird, I know. Um, but yeah, it's alcohol has, alcohol doesn't have the stigma, and I don't know why, because the day I was going to kill myself, I was about a fifth. I was almost a fifth into a bottle of whiskey. I actually only had a bottle of whiskey that day, and that it's a depressant, and that's what was creating some of those issues.
yeah,
I look back at my life, and here I am, 55 years old, retired, preaching earth medicine. I at one point supervised our department's drug task force, and we look for stuff like this. And I'm like, well, I've made a complete 360, but or 180,
180, yeah.
but it's people understand, and I've talked about it, and I've talked to coworkers, and oh, absolutely. And so I do think the stigma around psychedelics and stuff is changing, and I hope it does change. I know the VA is now doing research on it for PTSD because it's beneficial, and I'm hoping to see that for first responders as well. And not for first responders who are retired because they're injured or PTSD, whatever. I want to see it for first responders who are in their careers,
Yeah,
and they can process that, because it will make them a better first responder. Absolutely make them
absolutely.
a better responder.
Yep, absolutely. Instead of going to like, hey, let's go to the bar tonight.
Correct.
Hey, like the culture around drinking, whether you're a Marine or you're a police
Oh, yeah.
officer or you work in a hospital and you're just like, oh my gosh, I gotta like decompress. That was a lot. So you
Yeah.
go to something that is not helpful, that's a disconnect from your spirit, from your soul, from your
Correct.
emotions, from all of that that hardens you. It's like, oh my gosh, let's have something that helps us process through, that breaks down this stuff so that you can show back up more
Yeah.
open, more fully aware, alert, connected.
Yes.
Yeah.
In this case, I mean, yeah, I'll say, now if I get upset or something's stressing me out, I don't go drink. I'll sit here and meditate. All my friends who know me prior to all this, the guy chomping on the cigar in the back parking lot, will never believe this. But yeah, I sit and meditate, or I listen to music, and I calm myself down, and then I'm connected to who I am in
Yeah.
myself, and I'm able to help others. And it's amazing.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for being
Mm.
such an example of what is possible to go from the absolute darkest place, literally moments away from letting that darkness win
Mhm. Yep.
and take your soul and wherever it goes, whatever happens
Right.
after. Thank goodness that you had that connection and you were able to see and hear whatever that voice from your
Right.
child, to be able to say like, hey, whoa, 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 hold on, what are you doing? That then led you on this path, because so many people don't make that choice.
They don't.
So many people end up taking their life, and it's just, oh gosh, so
Yeah.
heartbreaking. I'm sure you've lost friends, and they've lost friends, and it's just this cycle that is so heartbreaking.
Yeah. I mean, in general population, suicide's high, let alone the veteran and the first responder community. It's just asinine, and we need to do something.
Yeah. And here it is. Here's
Yeah,
something. Here's a
I
tool.
agree.
I'm not saying it's
Uh,
the be all end all and it's for everyone, but it is a tool. And yeah, sure, maybe there needs to be some more research, but how much more research do we need? Like, I'm just wondering, I'm just wondering,
Right.
like, at what point, how many more studies on depression and anxiety and PTSD do we need? Is 100 more? I mean, there's already hundreds of
Right.
studies from the 60s and from the last, whatever, 10 years, 5 years, while this
Yeah.
has really been rolling out. Like, we can continue down that path. Yes, please. If that's what people need to feel validated. Me personally, I've seen hundreds and hundreds of people. I've seen their lives turn around. I've seen, like, you go from suicidal ideation to really thriving. And after 4 to 6 hours, four
Hmm.
to six hours, it's crazy how
It is.
one little experience, well, us couched in with cold plunging and meditation and breath work and sound healing, and just in community and
Right.
vulnerability and openness. I mean, we stack the psilocybin with other modalities, but truly you don't even have to put anything in your body. Think about that. Think
Mhm.
about breath
No, you
work,
don't.
guided meditation, and just being in community and being open and honest and vulnerable, how that alone can help.
Yeah, I will say, and that's the benefit of programs like yours, that you put on. It's not, yeah, I can go out and I can find someone that has psilocybin and I could take it, but I'm not going to get the same effects as being in a setting where I have people who are there to make sure I'm safe. I'm
Mhm.
learning how to meditate. I'm learning how to let go. I'm doing the cold plunge, which is great for your system. And just all the different modalities, all the mindset, and all the stuff that goes into it, is what makes it so successful. And for anybody who's looking into this, don't just go out and find someone who has mushrooms and take them. That's you're not going to get the benefit. You need to have that support before and after, and follow up and build on to that period of time that our brains are rebuilding afterwards. Or it's just basically a waste, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah, the set and setting really matters, especially if you
Hmm.
have a lot of stuff coming up. Your vessel needs support so you can relax that nervous system. I would love
Sure.
to wrap this conversation up
Yep.
with just the other modalities. So if someone's out there and maybe they're like psilocybin's just now kind of coming onto their radar, and they're
Right.
going to go spend the next couple months or year, 2 years, whatever it is, doing the research. What can someone do right now? What would you tell a veteran or first responder out there who is contemplating taking their own life,
Right.
who does feel that really cynicism, that cynical, this world is a terrible place, I'm not worthy, I've done XYZ, or my parents, blah, 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 whatever the stories are they're telling themselves. What are some of the things they could do right now to start to turn that tide for themselves in a legal, safe way?
So number one, right now, as you're listening to this and you're having those thoughts, pick up your phone, text or call your closest friend and tell them. I don't care who they are. I don't care how vulnerable you feel. Tell them what you're feeling, what you're thinking of. And I can guarantee you, if they're a true friend, they're going to help you. The second one is, and I'm going to preach therapy. I didn't believe in it until all of this,
Mhm.
but look for a therapist who fits your needs. You both have to be a good fit for each other. And then after that, start looking at meditation. Meditation has worked great for me. It's hard to get into meditation and learn how to shut your brain down. I have finally figured that out after a year. And it's very peaceful, but it allows me to get center myself and put me in the right space of mind for whatever I'm going to do next. But reach out to a friend. You can't do this alone. This lone wolf mentality is just crap. Lone wolves don't exist. Lone wolves are the ones that are sick and ill, and exactly what it is. You need to be in a pack. You need to be in your community reach out, find that community, get that support, and then move forward from there. And whatever, whether you do meditation, yoga, yoga is a hit and miss for me, but meditation is definitely a key. Exercise is essential. And kind of a backstory in that, as I've always exercised on and off, but I did it as a punishment to punish myself, hurt my body, whatever it might be. As I was going through leukemia, and I was sitting there being a victim in my chair, one of my appointments when the doctor asked, she goes, "Are you walking?" I was like, "I can't even get off the chair. How can I walk, doctor?"
Mhm.
So she goes, "Nope, you're going to go home. You're going to walk 15 minutes today. And tomorrow you're going to do 16. You're going to build up to 45." I started doing that, doing that movement, and just doing movement, whatever exercise you do, it doesn't have to be much of anything, creates all kinds of chemicals or just in
Yep.
your body, that positivity. And I felt so much better, and my healing in my process sped up dramatically because of walking. And so now I work out, not religiously, pretty religiously. It's something that I don't, yeah, if somebody wants to do something with me, it's during my workout time, yeah, you're gonna have to wait. Sorry. But those are some key factors, in nutrition, all of that, and sleep, all of that. We all know this. We just don't listen to it.
Yeah.
But do it. But biggest one is reach out to a friend right now.
Yeah. Thank you. And gratitude, right? Like you
Yeah.
talked
Oh,
about.
absolutely. Yeah. That's just the
That
key.
gratitude practice, like honestly sitting with what are you grateful for
Hmm.
and finding, Ram Dass said, find the smallest thing and build from that. You can
Yeah.
be grateful for breath. You can
Yeah.
be maybe you're not grateful for breath. Maybe that's part of the problem, that you have to be here. But you can be grateful for the little things that you love. You can be grateful to yourself just for showing up every single day
Yeah.
and just holding that gratitude. Be grateful that you do have a friend that you can reach out to. And if you don't have a friend, that there's hotlines, there's people out there
Yeah.
who care, who are willing to sit and listen. It starts with vulnerability. Honest to goodness, why do
It
you think
does.
Brené Brown has an entire book, all
On that.
about being vulnerable and all the science around that? And I've seen it over and over in my life too. We're meant to connect. We're meant to be open. We're not meant to sit and hold all of this ourselves, all of
We're
our
not.
stories by ourselves. Like
Yeah.
it's wild, the programming that has been instilled in us, to be strong and independent and you got this and you can do this on your own. I mean, maybe, but for how long?
You
For
can't.
how
You
long?
cannot do it on.
Until
You
we're sick.
cannot do it on your own. I'm.
Yeah.
I'm just. I can tell you that right now. And if you're out there and you don't think you have a friend, you do. You have to put the shame and guilt that you feel away and just reach out to someone. They're there. There are always friends out there. Yeah, you have to be willing to be vulnerable and open up to them.
Yeah. And give people a chance. If that first friend isn't available, reach out to someone else. Like
Yep.
keep trying just because the first one or second or third, maybe it's just that day, give them 12 hours, give someone
Yes.
24 hours, give people some time. I mean, I've heard stories where it's like they called the first person and they were busy. They called the second person and they were busy. The third person they were busy. And then they ended up making a choice that, they can't take back. And it's like don't give up, just don't give up.
Don't give
There
up.
are answers out there. There are solutions. You're meant for more. You're meant for more than
Absolutely.
this pain and suffering.
Yep.
Suffering. Who said it? Pain is inevitable, and suffering is a choice. And
Yes.
if we sit in suffering for too long, leukemia, right, or some other
Yep.
illness or sickness, and it's like
Yep.
it's
Yeah.
too much. It's too
I'm
much.
100% convinced my leukemia is the fact I was not taking care of myself, with giving myself gratitude, grace, and moving on, and holding all that hate and anger inside of me. And
Yeah.
if I hadn't have found the path I have found, yeah, I'm pretty sure I would come back and I would not survive it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And you went through a lot in a very short period of time. And so if you can do it, Mr.
True.
Allen, others out there can do it too. You are a testament of what is possible. Hey, it's 11:11 here right now.
Oh, oh
Uh,
wow.
yeah, perfect. Perfect timing. Well, thank you
Mm.
so much. Any final thoughts or messages that we haven't already shared or anything else you'd like to reiterate before we end this podcast?
You know, my biggest thing is that if you're out there, anybody, but especially veterans, first responders, and you're suffering and you're stuck, reach out to someone, find help, do it, put away your ego. Um, And if you want, you can reach out to Eva and she can connect you with me. I will talk to anybody about this, and I will talk to anyone to help them through what they're dealing with.
Yeah, thank you. I can't wait to see what you end up building, what you end up creating. The seminars, the retreats, the talks. I see this path for you. It is so it's like, of course, it feels like a very natural progression from where you have been. And so just continue to listen to that one step at a time,
Yep.
one foot in front of the other, and just allowing it to adapt and mold as you find clarity within yourself and you figure out, how do you want to serve? How do you
Correct.
want to be in this world? There's a lot of work to be done. And I really honor and appreciate you for doing your own work, for doing the hard things and following through with those things to the ability that you could at the time, and
Right.
now even more. And just continue to honor that process. And I'm here for you if there's anything that I can
Yep. Yep.
ever share or help or support. That.
Yeah.
That's definitely, I feel like I'm in that phase now of like teaching. What can I
Yes, you
teach?
are.
What can I offer as far as how to do this well more out there in the world for people? How do we, raise all the boats? No one's going to be left behind. Everyone gets to come along on this journey of healing and wholeness. And so thank you
Right.
so much for being an example.
I thank you for having me here, and it's an honor to be know you and be a friend, call you a friend.
Thanks. I feel the same, sir.
So,
Okay, hold on one second.
okay.
Let me take you out and say bye to everyone out there. Thank you so much, Alan, for sharing. And thank you for those who have stuck around and listened to his story and his journey. You are not alone. You are not alone. You do not have to sit in the suffering. This world is not easy. We have created a lot of systems and we've normalized pain and suffering. And that's not normal. That's not how we're supposed to show up. We are loving, caring beings. We want to connect. We want to offer grace and compassion and be vulnerable in this progress of evolution. So take the time that you need for yourself. Look for the help. I'll add into the show notes below resources for anyone out there, a place to start if you don't know where to start. Thank you for being here today, honoring yourself. I love you. Take care of yourself. Be kind to yourself. Until next time, this is Ideas to Human Better, and I am Eva Payne.